Я вам обещала много интересных тем. Сегодня мы будем путешествовать по различным, не знаю, как их назвать, по
Today
различным
we will
отраслям.
travel in
До этого
different
были в
industries. Previously, we visited nuclear, electrical energy
электроэнергетике.
industry,
Уходим
and right
в
now
сторону отпусков, морей,
we're
океанов
moving
и
to sea,
морского флота.
oceans, and the sea
Спросите вы
fleet.
меня, при чем
You
здесь
will ask me what
кибербезопасность?
the
Мне
cybersecurity has to
кажется,
do with it, and I have the same question.
наша сессия сейчас
Our session right
сегодня
now,
программа
the slot
называется
in this program
именно
is
так.
called
Есть ли
like that.
место
Is there a
кибербезопасности
place for
на море?
cybersecurity
Я
in the
не
sea?
считаю, что там есть, конечно, место
I
безопасности
think
на
there's a
личной,
place for
но
personal
я думаю, мои
security,
гости сегодня
but I think
мне
that my
расскажут
guests
много
today are
нового,
going
и
to
у
tell
нас
me a lot of new
очень
things. And today we have
специалисты в
Dmitry
направлении
Derinsky, head of the direction of the development of the products
цифровой
of the industrial security and positive
Сергей
technologies.
Сидоров,
Sergey
руководитель отдела
Sidorov,
сервисов
head of
безопасности в
services of the
лаборатории
industrial
Касперского,
security in the
и
Kaspersky Lab,
Алексей Гуревич,
and
заместитель
Alexei
начальника
Gurevich,
управления
deputy head of the
Cybersecurity.
Department of Cybertech, informational security.
Информационной
Yeah,
безопасности, да.
also information security.
Знаете,
Guys,
в
each
вашей
one of you
должности есть
in
слово
your position
промышленность, но
have the
нет
word
ничего про
industry, but there is
капитанство,
nothing about captain,
судоходство и еще что-то. Почему
marine,
вы
or
собираетесь
something
сегодня
like that.
рассказывать про корабли?
Давай я
Why
начну.
you want to tell me about ships and the sea?
Любое морское судно
Well, today any marine vessel
целый плавающий завод
can be a floating factory,
перевозки
fish
каких-то
processing,
материалов,
transportation of some flammable materials, laying pipes on the bottom of the sea. So
процессы.
where we see production processes, that where we see systems that manage these processes.
В этом плане тоже не
And marine vessels are not an exception from this point of view. So you're bringing us to the situation that hackers can do a lot of things on the sea vessels. And what can be done there?
привести
As an example,
с одной из
there
нефтегазовых
is a case with one of the oil and gas companies which has ordered construction of two
стране, когда она их получила,
ships in another country, and when they received it and when the ship went to the port, they just stopped in the middle of the ocean.
с предприятием
Well, the crew has got connected to the company that was building these vessels,
произошло чудо.
and a miracle happened.
Специалисты завода удаленно
The factory specialists relaunched all onboard systems, and these vessels started floating. But then it caused questions for this oil and gas company.
как же это может быть вообще?
How can this be possible in principle? And if something like this exists, who else can do that? Who else can do that?
И кейсов достаточно много, да.
And there's a lot of cases like that, but most of them, due to certain reasons, are closed and non-public. I've heard of a case which I really like.
Перевозили огромный груз.
They've been transporting big cargo of diamonds on a vessel, in a sea vessel. And as a result, criminals were able to influence and interfere in the work of logistical company, not the vessel itself, but a logistical company. And they've done something interesting, that the vessel at a certain moment of time was in a place where it was waited by real pirates, and they stole all the diamonds.
Да, из голливудского фильма, на самом деле, но
Yeah, this is from the movie.
часть систем судна, она так или иначе
Some of the vessel systems are connected to communication with the corporate network, as we usually do it in industrial system, that there's communication for the business processes with the office network,
давать отчеты о произведенном
give
процессе.
reports about products manufactured in a given case, logistical reports. Same thing is for the vessels. It's relevant.
Некоторые каналы
They do have certain maps and communications between office and vessel in order to understand which cargo is being transported, where it is being transported, where it's directed. And the case is very understandable. I remember another case.
в 2016 году, по-моему, произошел.
In 2016, there was another case when one of the vessels, which was recently manufactured, it
Бумажной картографии. Оно
didn't have any
курсу и
paper cartography maps, but suddenly it came 3 days later than scheduled.
понятно, да.
Бермудский треугольник.
Nobody understands, like Bermuda Triangle. Yeah, like Bermuda Triangle. And then they figured out that in process of movement of this vessel,
Одна из основных навигационных систем электронной
it has switched on electronic cartography navigation system. It's a computer on a bridge
других бортовых систем.
which collects information from other onboard systems and shows to the team, to the captain, where the vessel is moving, what is happening around, what is the meteorological situation. And on one of these systems, surprisingly,
Нашего мира вредоносное
there was
программное обеспечение. То есть
normal
была
malicious
заблокирована эта
software.
система, потому что она
The
базируется
system was
на
blocked
OS
because it
Windows,
is
для которой,
based on
опять же,
OS Windows, for
применимы все те
which
же угрозы,
all
уязвимости,
the same
которые мы видим в
threats and
обычной жизни.
vulnerabilities are applicable that we see in regular life. Honestly speaking, I think that right now you're telling me stories, a reply to which is a very simple one.
Всем компьютерным системам на
Deny
корабле.
all computer systems on the vessels. 200 years ago, they've been swimming without all these things.
Вот, в принципе, пример, если говорить глобально,
You
то
see, an example, if we're going to speak
есть
globally,
система, которая позволяет
there's a
судам
system which allows vessels to go on the sea, not swim, but go.
эта система была построена
And this system was built recently. In the year 2016, it was developed, Galileo system. Why it was developed? It's a system similar to GPS. But
когда, например, были там бомбардировки Югославии, насколько я
when
помню,
Yugoslavia was bombed, I remember, navigation system and GPS navigation system was disconnected. Intentionally it was done, I think.
правительство, международное
So
правительство,
the international government, which provides marine transportation, airplane transportation, they started thinking about the fact that we need a similar system which will allow transportation vessels to move in a free space, and they made an analogy which is dedicated for that. So coming back to risks, incidents of information security, and the same vulnerabilities that we are speaking about,
реально вот прям, да, здесь,
realistically,
сейчас
yes, it exists here and it can be utilized. But I still think that this can be disconnected. Columbus was swimming in the sea and he found America. Modern diesel-electric vessels
Понимание, что такое там судно, там, привычное для нашей
are a
жизни.
little bit different from regular
Не просто двигатель, который там залил, условно говоря, топливо,
sailing
и
vessels
пошли куда-то, да, не поплыли.
or even motor
Там есть
vessels.
свои двигательные
They
установки,
have their own
которые
engine
производят электричество
which generate electricity. They have systems of the energy control. They have systems of engine control which control the electric engine, which can takes this electricity. There are ruling systems, steering system, and even if you will disconnect all the GPSs, the vessel still so high tech, and all these systems are built on basis of well-known products because they know well-known products of well-known manufacturers, Siemens, Ekagawa, and they all supply on the basis of their controllers, and they just change the project of controlling the technological process, movement of the vessel, and this or that way. The main idea is the same idea. They use the same SCADA systems. There was a joke. It's like a factory within a factory which controls another factory. The system of in-building is so crazy, and all the marine control has two facilities, the bridge and the central dispatch point. In order to control the vessel, it has to be done from the bridge. Basically, there should be only one person, the captain. Right now, it's very difficult. Right now, we have two key points is the bridge, which controls all this set of systems which have to work together and responsible for the movement of the city, and the dispatch point. You should remember that Columbus, when he was going on the seas, ports back then, they've been loaded and unloaded by horses. But right now, can you imagine infrastructure of any big seaport to manage logistically the load and unload of ship, of vessels, connection, disconnection of the vessels? All this is controlled automatically by special IT systems, and there's a big spectrum of technologies which are used. So if you want to affect them, it will destroy the work of the full hub of actions. Yes, they will stay and wait until all of this will be solved. Something's got to be fixed. It was the problem with Maersk when they've stole their business, and they could send their ships to the vessel because their land system in the ports, they were infected. They could not moor. Well, I understand the onboard systems, they are really connected with the vessels, but if we're speaking about vessel as the factory, as a certain means of transportation, it does have its own network where the systems are automated. There are engines. There is a system of little water removal, the system which removes the water which go through certain mechanical workshops. So there's a lot of systems, and these technological systems of the vessel, they are separated from the office network. So the vessel is traveling, it has sailors. In the evening, they watch movies, they read books and Wi-Fi systems. These systems are separated physically from the vessel control systems, and the vessel has a lot of technological process. They are separated. Are they truly separated? Because Scott is also separated.
Вот, большой лайнер,
Well, the big liner,
кают для
big number of passenger rooms, but all this is controlled by the system similar to the system which controls in a hotel access to hotel rooms, plastic cards, and other similar things.
компрометация этих систем, там
So the attack and compromising of the system is something well known, and many hotels have suffered from this. So nothing stops anybody to have similar attacks against other vessels which are navigating in the sea. You can open all the doors or you can close all the doors. But if in a vessel there will be some accident and passenger doors have been blocked, what can be done?
вариантов много. Мы вот
They will drown together with the vessel. For example, we've been communicating with
судоходными компаниями, которые, ну, у которых есть
marine companies which have fishing trawlers. You know, trawler is a factory, full cycle. They catch fish, they process fish, they package fish, and they store fish. But the problem is
морозильных камер,
that they store it in
и
refrigerators, and the vessel travels across the sea 3-4 months.
если в течение 3 дней морозильных
If in the course of 3 days fridge is not going to work,
вся продукция
all the fish will deteriorate and will be thrown away. Okay, tell me please, who is the main enemy of the marine transportation? Who is this criminal? If we are going to go back 100 years ago, pirates, yes, I understand. One vessel has conquered another vessel, but who is this hypothetical somebody who can have interests?
К счастью для нас, по тем примерам, которые мы видим в публичном,
Those examples that we see in the public space and that our clients speaking about,
про какой-то
this is
случайный
about some
пример, который мы приводим,
artificial or
пока
target attacks. We don't know of target attacks, and fortunately, we hope they are not going to happen and nobody will know about them. But honestly,
конечно, внутреннему
speaking about the main enemy, internal, these are typical vulnerabilities which can be imagined when you're inside of this process. There's access to some equipment. That's it.
интересная составляющая здесь для всех компаний, для всех
But the
владельцев.
main component for all the owners is the external criminal, what the person can do.
Момент хотел бы заметить, что в отличие
And
от
another
обычных
point that I wanted to speak,
коммуникаций с собственной сетью,
when you have communication with your own network,
потому что судно
the channel of data transportation is limited, especially if we see in the northern, behind the 70th parallel, there will be no satellite communications at all.
канал коммуникации с
So sustainable communication channel with the office network may not be feasible, but there are other vectors which are coming
судном. То есть помимо всех понятных задач,
through marine channels. And in addition to well-known channels, you know, the vessel also uses radio communications, radio channel to transfer
погоде,
messages about weather, messages about
остановки в тех или иных секторах. И для этого
weather conditions and stops. And they use international standard data, international protocol, and every vessel is equipped with this equipment. And in the internet,
на саммите по
there's a
такому
big number of attacks against these protocols. Because the problem is the same. They're reliable, but they've been developed so long ago when they didn't think about the security. This is a similar story like with protocols, telecommunication protocols, right?
похожая история,
Yeah.
вот как самолет.
It's a similar story like airplane protocols where they are being broken. And when in a flight, rather, you can see thousands of airplanes around it. So they have the same system of automatic indication of the vessel, which makes the picture of the vessel in the space. And they use the system of shortwave range and they transfer this information to the next station. Well, the criminal can create something like that on the screen of the vessel and can put it to another sector. But why? Why? Here's the vessel. It's a big vessel. You cannot hide it.
Но здесь действительно здесь идет
Well,
простое решение, что
It's a simple solution that this system, if you want to break the protocol,
есть капитан.
you cannot achieve something useful because there's captain, there's other systems like radar and other systems. And generally speaking, these attacks they can easily be discovered and nobody knows about it. But there's another problem that nobody speaks about. It's using these protocols for getting access to the end device. And unfortunately, there are not many researchers because we have data protocols, so with data transfer protocols, so we have devices which process these data. Yes, this is embedded device, but it has its own system. It also processes packages, it uses radio channel, and through this device you can send same vulnerabilities we know in the regular world. Okay, yes, I understand, but why? Why? Well, let's see. For example, if you get access, well, because of disconnected for each, nothing is bad. For example, on the map, you see how the vessels are moving in the sea, and there are certain rules that all the vessels should follow. There are rules of passing. Small vessels should let big vessel to pass. All the vessels should follow those rules. These are international marine mooring rules. And if the system is not going to show the vessel, when a big vessel, you know, the captain is not standing and looking into the binoculars, bar it, and everybody start running around. Well, you've asked this question, I'm answering this question. So right now, this is done through the avionics digital maps, which are shown to the captain. And if the vessel is not going to be able to see what happens on the side of it, there's a high probability of the incident. And this is one of those risks or inadmissible events which we are constantly speaking about for the vessels or for the owner of the vessel who has business built on transportation of the same fish. Here it is. This is the option of the attack vectors. And the biggest problem when it goes to the port or leaves the port, mooring or unmooring, because there is not enough space, and attacks against the ship. These are the most critical attacks. If you will disconnect and make a blackout when the ship is being moored, nobody understands where it's going to be moored because it's a high inertia. So you can break one big significant marine hub for a certain period of time, just influencing one vessel. And perhaps there will be big economical consequences. Well, the vessel is vessel. It's a piece of metal floating in the sea, but everything's being controlled through the systems, IT systems, SCADA systems. So when you influence those systems, well, the motivation can be different. Why this is to be done? There could be any motivation. Right now, hacktivists, there are so many hacktivists, and there is no even financial motivation. They just break for the sake of breaking. Please don't tell those guys that you have forgot there are those pieces of metal floating in the sea. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, this is very bad, very bad. I'm afraid, but what is to be done? What is to be done? What about security and these pieces of metal? Well, Dmitry, in the beginning of the conversation, he said, well, there was an example when the vessel stopped in the middle of the sea, and only upon the request of engineers who installed their systems and through the remote connection, the vessel started moving on. So the vessel has a problem that very often the vessel which is being leaving the factory, shipyard, it has the system of access control, and the captain in the sea is responsible for the system. No matter what happens in the sea, captain is responsible for all of them. And it happens with cybersecurity, he's also responsible for it. But systems of access distribution, and this control matrix, captains, they don't have access. He has a pre-tuned password to which he will enter and leave. So it will happen that on a vessel you should use a specialized systems and means of protection which control privileged users. Yeah, the privileged user system. And the captain should have this, should be a specialist in the area of cybersecurity. If we speak about the vessel as an object of defense and how it is being protected on Earth, this is a separate remote object, but this is just a mobile object, on board of which it has an X number of technological systems, networks, several segments.
Там понятно, как решать. Средства защиты, в принципе, одни и те же. Технологии.
Technically speaking, they use the same technologies,
А
same
специфическое
security
именно в
system.
том,
But
что
what about
это,
specific? Well, specificity is
объект, на
that
котором не
this is the
специалист
facility which has no
вот,
specialists,
удаленно
and
управлять
remotely
процессами
controlling those
кибербезопасности,
processes of
мониторинга,
cybersecurity, like
реагирования на
monitoring, reaction to
инциденты,
incidents.
можно только с земли.
This can be
И в
done
этом
only
основная проблема,
from ground, and this is
что
the main
Даешь
problem.
каждому кораблю
даже
свой домашний
если
That
сок.
every
увидели
vessel should have its
обнаружили
own
какой-то
SOC.
инцидент
For example, if you have
вовремя,
discovered
да,
some
то
incident
что с
on
ним
timely
делать?
basis,
Это
what
должен
is to be done with
реагировать
it
капитан
afterwards? Who should
или
react to this?
кто-то,
Captain
кто на
or
корабле.
somebody else who is on the ship? But who is on the ship? It's,
Ну, с одной
you
стороны,
know, the navigator
да,
or
проблема. С
somebody
другой
else.
стороны,
Yes,
вы
it's a
говорите,
problem
что
on one side,
судно
but on the other side, you
лежит в
say
себе,
that vessel is a thing within itself, and there's no access from outside. Everything which happens in Vegas stays in
и сиди
Vegas.
себе там изнутри расследуй
Sit
вообще.
inside and investigate it inside. It's a fairy tale. Nobody can influence anything. Nobody knocks at your doors from outside. But the problem is, if there will be some influence, this will happen somewhere outside of the mainland, and the team will have to clear the situation by themselves. That's what I'm going to. So in the crew should have a special person. Yes, vessel automation can distribute certain roles in a crew. For example, if previously radio engineer was mandatory, but with those systems it's automated, and this is not a mandatory role in the vessel. And from this point of view, the possibility of thinking of introducing a new role as some system administrator or security administrator of the system. Another interesting topic is about how can the vessel be defended by the same mechanisms. It should be designed in the preliminary design, and it should be tuned up on the vessels. And about the monitoring, the vessel is isolated, and there is another moment as a black box for the events recording. We also have to think about extension of functions of this black box, so that every event, well, and the team should be able to figure out what incident was happening, because as we see in the publicity, people don't even understand. They thought that the system had broke down, but it was an incident, security incident.
Друзья,
Like one of the systems have broke down. Well, guys, it was wonderful.
спасибо вам за
First of all, thank you very much for diving in the world of vessel
было круто.
marine transportation. That was really cool. And then I have understood that truthfully,
Чтобы у каждого
we need to
корабля
move in the direction that every ship which is a plant would have an IT guy, security guy, maybe even two IT security guys.
не внес каждый
And if somebody in the Ministry of Digital Technology doesn't have every vessel in the list of those companies which should have the director and deputy director responsible for the cybersecurity, they should have them in their list. And right now, we had Alexei Gurevich, deputy head of the Department of Informational Security in the company Cybentech, Dmitry Doretsky, the head of the direction of the development of the products of industrial security in positive technologies, and Sergei Sidorov, the head of the Department of Services of the Industrial Security in the laboratory of Kaspersky. It was really cool to talk to you guys. I hope we're going to repeat this conversation 6 months, and amongst you, we will have natural captains, because I want to speak to captain.
будет решать эту проблему.
How the captain will solve this problem.
Отлично, договорились.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is agreed. Okay, dear friends, don't switch off. And right now we're going to speak about other industries which also are very closely related to the IT and also about cybersecurity, but we thought differently about them.